Again, we could think about Leibniz's statement, why is there something rather than nothing? And how did it get here? So how did everything come into existence? All right, let's start off with what evolutionary science does to avoid the existence of a supernatural creator. And they have said in the past, their statement or mantra has been, whatever exists has always existed. And this, even the ancient Greeks thought this. If any of you have heard of Plato, there was an ancient Greek philosopher named Plato, and he talked about an idea of a supernatural place, being, a God, if you will, and matter that is eternal. And in his thinking and in his philosophy, he said those things have always been, those eternal things. And what we see as material, concrete objects in this world are just shadows of those eternal realities. But there's a bit of a problem with Plato's philosophy, because then if those eternal things that are equal with God in the eternal realm, then how did they get there? Anyway, so scientists have assumed this because a creator is not needed if you believe that the universe has always existed. And this is based on the first law of thermodynamics, that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. And Norman Geisler, a Christian apologist, puts it this way: the actual amount of energy in the universe remains constant. So there may be an exchange of energy going on in the universe, but that total amount never changes. Make sense? Way back when I was in probably junior high school, I think, we were always like, oh, we're gonna have a film. Sit down and listen to or watch a movie, you know, the old projector with the, like, oh, wow. And here's this scientist, you can't see him, he's over here, Carl Sagan. And his statement in this film was, the cosmos is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be. And of course, you can imagine some background music going on anyway with this. And it sounds so elegant and poetic. But this is the philosophy behind that, is that the universe is eternal. There is no beginning to it. And so what they're saying has been called the steady state theory. Now, okay, you can see that. I'm a little disappointed with I talked to my son about this. I got some neat color going on here, but sorry, I'm digressing again. Steady state theory, the universe has always been there, nothing caused it. And so from the infinite past to the infinite future, the universe has always been there and always will be. And, oh, there he is. That's Buzz Lightyear there. To infinity and beyond, yeah. That's where my mind went when I was talking about it. Okay, scientists have since that time discovered that our universe is expanding. Edwin Hubble in 1929. How many of you have heard of the Hubble telescope? Okay, almost all of us have. Well, it's named after this man who is an astronomer. In 1929, he was following up some of the theories of other astrophysicists and astronomers in the early 1920s, and he discovered, as he was looking at these distant galaxies very far away, and he would come and look at those galaxies again, there would be a shift in the light spectrum to the red end of the spectrum, which means those bodies of galaxies are going further away. which confirmed theories that were based on Einstein's theory of general relativity. So if anybody wants to contest that the universe is expanding, you're going to have to do some deep digging and find out where the fault is. Our universe is expanding. And the other part of that is our universe will eventually experience a heat death. Now we're talking about the second law of thermodynamics. Energy in a closed system will tend to disorder increasingly until it reaches equilibrium. Now that's a mouthful. Basically, the heat in a system will it'll all normalize, come to an average temperature. And when that happens in our universe, that's it. There's no more life. It will cease to operate the way we understand it now. Now, universe is this slide 8? Along with this heat death, you all know that the rotation of the earth is slowing down. Apparently, we do have to adjust our clocks maybe every century. 1.78 milliseconds per century, our earth is slowing down. The sun, they tell us, the source of hydrogen of the sun will run out in about 5 billion years. I don't know how they figure those things out. But they're acknowledging that the energy that's in our universe, it's being used up, which means something. If you take the expansion, and I'll just show you the next one here first. So in order to get away from any idea of God, the scientists keep trying to think up other theories. Instead of looking for an absolute beginning of the universe, well, maybe the universe, came into being by itself and then it shrunk down again and then it started up again. That's what these little humps are. It kind of decreases to almost nothing, like a singularity, and then expands again and comes down and it keeps going like that, and all the cycles are the same. And then somebody else said, no, maybe it's more like this. The first cycle was small and the next one will be bigger, et cetera, et cetera. All to get away from this idea that there's a beginning, that it just kept going and going from the infinite past to the infinite future. But more recently, scientists have admitted the universe had a beginning. If you take these models of expansion, like I was talking about what Hubble had discovered, these are galaxies here, not planets. These are galaxies. And as they're expanding like that, if you think critically, what happened before the expansion? Well, it got smaller and smaller. It was smaller at a certain point. And so down here, and even beyond that, what happened? Now again, I don't know how these guys figure this out through mathematics. That's beyond me. But the idea of I put in quotation marks, a big bang, something must have happened to start the universe. And of course, they all know that our universe is headed towards a heat death. So now the theories that I showed you before, I failed to mention. Some of you have heard of black holes. So these astronomers have found these, what they would call like a star that is imploded and energy is being sucked up. Well, some other people have suggested white holes where energy is actually coming into the universe, but none of those things can really point to the cause of the beginning of the universe. This is what has now been considered the standard model. So if we would diagram this expansion of the universe, if we would reduce it down to its point where you can't You can't mathematically figure it down to the smaller thing anymore. It's called the cosmological singularity, the initial one, the very first one. So small and dense, all time and space is in that one little point. It's very hard to imagine. Space and time itself began at the initial cosmological singularity, before which literally nothing exists. Now, when William Lane Craig has presented this, some people think nothing is, well, you mean in the air or something happening. No, you're not understanding. When I talk about nothing, I mean nothing. Absolutely nothing. No air, no outer space, no atoms, nothing. In a sense, I mean, in this audience, I could say, if you talk about the spiritual realm, there is no matter there. There are no concrete objects as we know them. It's a different world. I mean, to try and explain that to a scientist who just thinks in concrete terms, that's very difficult. But they do acknowledge this singularity. And if you ever watch some of those debates or when they question atheists, well, what happened to cause the Big Bang? Oh, well, we don't know, and they have some theories. It's very comical sometimes the way they answer that question. Yeah, well, how did that, what was before that singularity? Well, nobody knows. We may logically assume this fact of the origin of our universe as a starting point to show that God was necessary for this event. For example, William Lane Craig says we can demonstrate that the universe must have a cause using Al-Ghazali's Kalam argument, which logically states, and before I get into that, Al-Ghazali was a Muslim theologian in the Middle Ages. Now, just wait a minute. He's presenting arguments for the existence of a God in the Middle Ages. And even as a Muslim, he was presenting arguments that there is a God. So if you look at this argument, we can use it as Christians in the same way. Because our first task in apologetics is to present evidence for the existence of God. Okay? So in this case, William Lane Craig has taken this argument, a Muslim philosopher's argument, and what would you say, edited it in modern terms, and he's even presented it in a dissertation. So it's been brought back into current philosophy, and there are probably videos online where he's defending this argument to other atheists. All right, so here we go. The first premise, whatever begins to exist has a cause. Okay? Whatever begins to exist has a cause. And we can think in terms of everyday life. If you see an egg, what was the cause of that egg? Well, a hen. Well, what was the cause of the hen? Well, probably an egg. and on and on. And we could go on to other topics or other examples. The second, well, I'm not here to talk about that. I would think the hen came first at creation, right? Okay, second premise. The universe began to exist, like that, the points I just shared with you before. The astronomical studies that they've done. The universe is expanding, which means if you go work yourself backwards in that evidence, the universe began to exist. And most scientists are still on board now with the idea that the universe did begin to exist. So, therefore, the third conclusion then, third point, which is the conclusion, therefore the universe has a cause. Now, if you've ever seen or any discussions online between people that are defending the idea of God and atheists, some might counter-argue with this, and I like Calvin and Hobbes. So just like the Peanuts cartoons, I put my own words in there. So here's a bully coming up to Calvin saying, physics gives examples of things coming from nothing. And Calvin, you'd better be nice to me, Mo. Sounds like he's been beaten up before. So when they say physics gives examples of things coming from nothing, they may be talking about in the 1950s, I believe it was, a couple of scientists, I forget their names, tried to do experiments in a lab, in a sealed container of some sort, with some kind of primordial goop, and shoot electricity through it to see if life would spring out of it. Well, those results were inconclusive and nothing. But remember what I said about nothing? That's not nothing. You're actually taking something and trying to produce life out of it. So I think that's a null and void kind of experiment if we're talking about where did everything come from. Since that time, how many of you have ever heard of the Large Hadron Collider that's near Geneva, Switzerland? Okay? And, oh boy, a young person there, he might be able to explain this better than me. Do you know what they've made that thing for? That's a 27-kilometer ring that they've made, and I think it's underground. Okay? And they use electromagnetic devices in the tunnel to shoot electrons and protons down there. So they're whipping around, and they're hoping to get evidence of how the universe began. Because when these atoms or protons, they collide against each other, other subatomic particles appear. And so back in, I think it was in 2012, there was all kinds of talk about the God particle that they have discovered. Right? Anybody heard about that? The God particle, the Higgs boson particle. Well, all that proved was there are very, very small, like when we talk about atoms and stuff, it still blows my mind how mankind has discovered the smallest particles of matter in the universe. And someday I'd like to look at an electron microscope and see what they can see. And then, of course, all the mathematical formulas, they figure out that there are subatomic particles. So this Large Hadron Collider is proving that there are subatomic particles that are giving mass to the other protons, et cetera, et cetera. So it's proving some points of all that theory about quarks and so on. But again, they're not creating something out of nothing. They're actually taking something and colliding it together and seeing how it breaks apart. And so I still remember seeing some of those videos. The scientists are all excited, like now we've discovered possibly how the universe started. You see Calvin's response here now. Mo, vacuum is not nothing. Nothing means absolutely nothing, not even vacuum. And along with that, so if things came from nothing, anything and everything could come from nothing then. Our observation of things in this world verifies this truth. Things just don't appear out of nothing. Well, they might counter-argue with, well, the universe caused itself. Well, how is that possible? Calvin answers, then the universe would had to have existed before it came into being. Think of that one. There had to have been, like we're talking about the cause, the universe has a cause, there had to have been an uncaused, personal cause that is timeless, spaceless, immaterial, and all-powerful to start the universe. If you don't have those qualities, the universe won't begin. You follow me? Timeless, because time and space began at a certain point. So you had to have something, it's actually someone, to make a decision to start the process of time and space. I know that's a lot to take in. Maybe I should go back and just look. Did everybody follow that argument? The 1, 2, 3? Let me just back up here. Maybe jot this down if you can't remember it. And it's something to ponder. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. Just a basic argument that can be defended. All right? And again, you may have people that will give you some counter arguments, but really, there's no real counter argument to that. And again, I just want to remind us as we talk about apologetics, the most effective and practical apologetic for the Christian faith is our relationship with God and our relationship with others. And let's remember 1 Peter 3:15. Always be prepared to give an apologia, a reason for the hope that is in you, but to do this with gentleness and respect. And I'll never forget the times that I blew my cool, and I knew as soon as I got upset, I lost it. And I had a friend a long time ago in Bible college that he just couldn't wait to present some of these arguments because he loves winning an argument. Like, you know what? It's not about winning a debate or winning an argument. It's about answering their questions honestly, in gentleness and respect, and allowing the Holy Spirit to kind of pound that truth into their hearts, that they will seek the truth about God. And then, secondly, that God has revealed himself in the person of Jesus Christ. All right, so this is some very basic apologetic approach, defending the existence of God. And I like this quote by William Lane Craig. More often than not, it is who you are rather than what you say that will bring an unbeliever to Christ. Wow, that went by quicker than I thought, probably because I cut out the video that I showed last time. I showed a debate, well, it was question and answer time, a debate between Frank Turek and Christopher Hitchens, a well-known atheist, and how Frank Turek actually lost his cool. And I thought, oh boy, brother, you lost it there. But really, atheists really don't have a good logical argument against some of these arguments that we're presenting for the existence of God. We do have a few moments. Does anybody have something to add to this? If you have a question, or may not be able to answer it, but yes, second.